Okay, so Cody, will you go ahead and introduce us and then get started?
So this is my grandpa. His name is Neil Polson, but during the interview I will ask him questions as Grandpa, because that's how I know him. He served in the Air Force. How old were you when you enlisted?
22.
22. That's pretty nice. Good age. How long did you serve in the Air Force?
24 years.
24 years. So, I got my math right. You were 46, right? When you.
Something close to that.
Why did you choose to serve in the military?
Well, because when I was in high school, before I graduated, after I graduated and I was going to Utah State University, I was offered an opportunity to enlist in the Army as a draftee for the Vietnam War. And I had started in school at Utah State, and I took the Air Force ROTC program there at Utah State, and when I got done with that, I was sent a nice little note from Uncle Sam saying, "We want you." And I thought, I don't know if I want to do that or not, because my father had a big farm out on Promontory. My mother was really not with me going into the military, especially in the Army. And so Dad went to the draft board and got what they call a deferment. Got me a 1-year agricultural deferment that said that I had time to talk to other recruiters. So I did. I went to the Navy, and I knew I didn't want to be in the Navy because they only have two kinds of ships, and that's submarines and targets. And then I knew I didn't want to be in the Marine Corps because I had seen too many of my friends who were coming home from the Vietnam War in flag-draped coffins. So I gave them a courtesy call and said, "Thank you very much. I think I'll go see somebody else." So I went to the Army, and the Army looked at me and they said, "Oh, you got stuff we need." And then they started to tell me all of the good things that they were going to do with me if I went with them in the Army. And they told me, okay, when you go through basic training, you will be automatically promoted to be a warrant officer. Now, a warrant officer in the Army was an enlisted man who wore shoulder sleeves like this, but he had officers' positions, activities that were appointed to him to be able to be there. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound too bad till I started doing my research, and I realized that the warrant officers in the Army were like low-ranking officers, but they were the ones flying the Black Hawk helicopters into the big war zones, and their life expectancy was little to nothing if you went to be a warrant officer. Those who did make it were not lucky. So I went to the Army, or the Air Force then, and I said, the other guys don't really know what I want to do, so I'm going to ask you if you'll enlist me. So on the 17th of May, on 1966, and I think if I'm correct, that's your dad's birthday.
Yeah. Couple years before, but yeah.
But I enlisted in the Air Force, and they sent me to Amarillo Air Force Base in Texas for basic training. And there I learned a lot of lessons about how the military works. And I also learned a lot about what they knew about me. And because my eyeglasses, I now wear 4 sets of eyes in these eyeglasses. When I was in the Air Force, I had 2 sets of eyeglasses, two sets of eyeglasses in my regular eyes. And so what they did, they turned me over and gave me a administrative career field, which meant I was going to be working with computers and administrative paperwork, and I eventually was going to end up working for a 2, 3, or 4-star general above me. I had to learn a whole lot of lessons, but it didn't take me long to learn the lesson that was important, and that was to make my general look good. That was fun. I had a lot of fun with it. And then as I would go through the ranks, I was learning all about a whole bunch of different things, like how many airmen who were not men, they were women. And as my rank progressed, I realized how I had to figure some things out, and a lot of you kids are going to think, well, that was really stupid or something, but no, it wasn't. It was to me, it was a new experience when I had to learn how to live and work with and for women, especially the ones who were older than I and in higher ranking. It was hard for me to get around them and learn how to make them know that I knew what they wanted me to know, and I know how to make them better. So a lot of my stuff I was flying a desk. I was assigned to Vandenberg Air Force Base as my first assignment out of basic training. That's where I met Cody's grandma. And we got married. And then we had Cody's mom. But I spent 15 years of my 24 years, I was working at Vandenberg Air Force Base. That base had been an Army base, and then when the Air Force came in and they were using the Strategic Air Command and the missiles, that the motors were being built out here in Promontory, and they were sent to the bases that went right down the middle of the United States, from California or Canada down to Mexico. We had missiles there that were stationed to be able to fly and do destruction like the airplanes were doing with bombs, a lot faster than when the bombers were up. I really kind of enjoyed doing that, because when Vandenberg became an Air Force base and not an Army base anymore, if you know how California is it has a crunch right in the middle of it that goes only one way, and that's over the Pacific Ocean. And that's why we needed that base. It was so we could build test facilities on the base, that we could test what we're shooting out over the ocean, to see that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing when they're supposed to be doing it. And that is saving the United States from overrun by an enemy. And I know all of this sounds way up here, and it is. It was for me for a long time, until I got the right people who were my bosses, who knew how to handle me and make me a better airman. So I made it my job when I finally had brand new young recruits coming into my offices and working under me, who, like, doing a computer thing was really easy for them. For me, I used to be a farmer. I knew how to milk cows.
Drive a tractor.
Yeah,
Ride horses.
yeah. Have a little bit of fun in the time frame. But to me, I had a real hard time with the computers. But then I learned how each of the people that was working under me helped and taught me things that I needed to know about the computer systems that they could walk through like this. The only thing I had over them was I had a pretty good eye on English and the translations and the punctuations and all of that. And all of that stuff is what the general loved, because it made him look good, because he wasn't looking like he was a dummy. He knew how to speak. And so for a time I had about 15 young men and women who worked under me doing the administrative stuff, and all I had to do was go to one of them and say, hey, I've got this project, will you do this for me? And don't know that when you're done with it, or think you're done with it, it comes to my desk so I can tell you whether it's ready to go to the general or not. That made my guys sit up and take coach looking at what they were doing with what they did. And when I'd find a small mistake, it was easy to fix. When I had a bigger mistake, I never heard them say, I don't know if I know how to do that. And I'd keep telling them, I know that you know how to do that, and I expect it of you. And so that, in the wake of things, I ended up being the administrator for, let's see, when I was at Vandenberg, I was in the protocol office working for the general. Our boss was a lieutenant colonel. And then we had 5 captains and the lieutenants and 2 enlisted guys in the protocol division, and we were all working for the general. And it was hard at first to figure out, okay, how does the general supposed to be saying, and how so it'll look like he knows what the hell he's doing. And I still have him happy. But my efforts that I put into my administrative stuff made sure that I wasn't the one out there pushing a button to send a missile up in the air, or talking on an aircraft to somebody about, oh, there's one, we gotta get him. Those kind of things. My job was to be sure that our paperwork was right and good. Fortunately, I had some good generals that worked with me. And in working with me, they looked at my stuff and they'd look at me and then they'd say, you did this? And I'd say, well, sir, I did some of it. But it was these guys out here who backed me up that made you look good and know what you need to know to make your job what it was supposed to be. So my administrative career went through, I was in Vandenberg for 15 years in 4 different assignments. And every time I'd leave Vandenberg, I'd end up back there. And that was good because I had friends there, and my mother-in-law lived there, and that's where she wanted me. And everywhere I'd go. I was at Hill Air Force Base for 2.5 years. When I worked here at Hill Air Force Base, I was in the explosive ordnance disposal unit as their chief clerk, taking care of all of the administrative paperwork that we had to take care of about our job and making sure that the guys knew what they were doing. And I spent 2.5 years at Hill Air Force Base. When I got done at there, they sent me to Vandenberg again, and I was again. That time I had ended up with a top secret clearance on my belt because they assigned me the communications orderly into their organization. And we were in a concrete basement where everything came in. And in order to be able to get into there, you had to have a top secret clearance. So that carried with me for the rest of my 24 years. So everywhere I went, I was in high up positions in administration. A lot of my friends were pilots, and they really had a lot of fun sometimes. But I saw a lot of them who had a little bit of problem. They got shot down. When I was here at Hill, I was in California again. And there was a pilot who was a prisoner of war from the Vietnam War. And I met him when I was in the Philippines working with the repatriation of the prisoners of war from the United States. And I met him and I did some of his paperwork. And then after he was repatriated, he was re-enlisted in the officer rank that he would have been had he not been a prisoner of war, and that made him a lieutenant colonel. And they're pretty high up. They wear a silver oak leaf clover on their shoulder up here, where I wear stripes that tell you, yeah, he was in for 24 years. And see, he started out, he had only one stripe on him. He didn't supposed to be knowing anything, but then I got into places where I had to have this top secret clearance. And that scared the heck out of Tiffany's mother, because that meant that anybody asked me what I did in the Air Force, I'd have to tell them, well, I could tell you because I got a top secret clearance. And I said, so what? And I said, because I hold a top secret clearance. If I tell you anything that I do, I gotta kill you. Think about that.
That's pretty high. That's pretty high risks just for some information. Some pretty high risks.
And I really enjoyed those high up risks, because when I was stationed here at Hill Air Force Base with the Explosive Ordnance Disposal Squadron, our office was in the munitions storage area. It had a 16-foot chain link fence with concertina wire on top of it around, and the building was stationed in the ammunition storage area. So in order to get into the ammunition storage area, I had to have a top secret clearance, which I had. And I was able to get into the munition storage without any problems. Then it was easier getting into my office, because when you got to that concertina wire fence, you had to show your ID card to whoever's on the inside of that place, when most of the time it would be me. You had to show them your clearance to get into the fence. And then when you got into the fence, you had to throw it again at the door before you could even go to work. So you had 4 times you had to show your ID card and proof that you had the clearance to be able to be where you were at. That's how tough some of the stuff in the military is. I had a lot of fun in the military too. Like I told you, I worked with or for women, so I had a lot of work to do, figuring them out. And I tell you, I found out that I had a pretty heavy, really cool group of women that worked for me and with me. And I had some of the best. I have a picture of when I was promoted to this rank. One of the colonels was a lady, and she was my boss. And when I was promoted, and it was time to put my stripes on, this lady, this colonel that I worked for, got a hold of my wife, and that was the most fun experience that I'd had in the Air Force, was having a colonel on one side of me pinning my master stripes on, and my wife
putting them on the other side.
Yeah, and when I got it, I had to take this coat off, and then they had a epaulette that I'm wearing inside of this that had the stripes. All they had to do was unbutton the strip and slide them on and say, "Good job, John, way to go," you know. But that colonel had a rapport with me that put me in a level that she would talk to me and give me information that I needed to know for making things better. And it gave me a lot of respect for the military, because it went not only in the Air Force, it went in the Marine Corps, and a little rougher in the Marine Corps and the Navy and the Army, but the military in the Air Force was all total respect, and that made your job easier.
So I think you knocked out a couple questions there.
A few more than you wanted me to ask.
No, that's actually pretty good. So you already said some things that you enjoyed about the military. How did you tell your family and your friends that you had joined the military, or did they already know, or did you say what did you say to tell them?
Well, in my immediate family, it was just my mother and my dad. And my mother she was going to have a heart attack because I was going into the military. But then when she found out that, okay, he was in ROTC at college, maybe that'll be a different thing. So she decided to not have a heart attack on me because I was going into the Air Force. Yeah. And Dad, for the way he taught us when I was a kid on the farm, was he taught you, and then he'd say do this, and then be all kinds of hell if you didn't. But when he found out that I had got a draft notice, he realized that I was an asset to the farm, and went to the draft board and got me a 1-year agricultural deferment, which meant I had my opportunities to go talk to the other organizations to see which one I wanted to be in. And then my dad finally gave in and said, okay. And the day that I left out of Salt Lake to go to Amarillo, Texas for basic training, Dad was standing on the flight line waving by. So,
So in the end, they were happy with you going?
well, Grandma took her quite a while, but that's because she has tears.
Yeah. Okay.
But her dad was in the Navy, so she had a little bit of my side on her when we went.
Let's see. So, I already said what some of your duties were. You did say it in one of the questions, but I'm not sure people really noticed it. I'm not sure people would really notice it. But he served during the Vietnamese War. He served during the Vietnam War, and one of his duties during it, he kind of said it was getting prisoners, American prisoners, back to being patriots and Americans. So he did some of that paperwork. Why do you feel it's important to celebrate Veterans Day?
Well, 'cause I'm one of them. And I like all the food joints. Well, really, being a veteran means, okay, a lot of people, if you're a football player, it takes a long time to get football out of your system if you're good, right, boys? Basketball, same thing. What about you girls? Nurses?
One of them over there said dance. Once you're done with that, I'm guessing it's still hard for you to get it out of your head.
Yeah, yep. It is. It's really, that's something that it takes a lot of time. If you're in the war, it takes a lot of time and a lot of people that have the right skills to help you get there back into being a normal person. For me, it only took a little while because I had enough administrative stuff that I had to do. Sometimes I had piles of stuff like this that I had to get like this real quick. So I had to learn how to handle all kinds of different situations. And in my bathroom at my home, I have a poster, paper, picture of a cowboy with a scruffy beard and his cowboy hat and a squint on his eyes. And the caption underneath it says, "There was a hell of a lot of things this outfit forgot to tell me about."
I've seen it. I've seen this. This is true.
And I had to kind of take that as my motto and learn from those who knew how to teach me and be able to utilize the abilities of those who worked for me and in letting them know, well, okay, they knew a lot of stuff that I didn't. And so I knew who I could pick to do what, and they all knew that, hey, yeah, I'm gonna get this job, but I'm gonna do my best so that when it goes to him, it's not gonna come back to me with a lot of corrections in it.
So that it is very important to celebrate Veterans Day because those people have worked hard for America and for serving. How do you feel we can celebrate and honor these veterans that served for America?
Well, how many of you go like to Kent's or Ridley's or one of the grocery stores or one of the stores around town on
Main Street?
on Main Street and on Veterans Day time frame?
Yeah.
We at that time we're selling poppies that go into the money goes to help support veterans, and it's a donation. It's not a, okay, here's a little paper poppy for $5. It's not like that. You give a donation, you get a poppy to remember the veterans. And I can tell you,
Good? You okay?
just a minute,
Okay.
that daughter of mine sitting down there knows what we go through. Cause we went from Vandenberg to the Philippine Islands where her brother was born. And then we came back from there to Vandenberg Air Force Base, and then I ended up at Hill Air Force Base. And when I left Hill Air Force Base, I ended up in Japan. So I had a lot of outside influence from world positions. And I had a lot of fun on some of it. A lot of times I had more than 5 stripes on my shoulder. I do have 6. I don't have 7 because I didn't want to be a politician. So I just decided, okay, when I make master, that's going to be it. And when I retired, that's where I got my payback from all of the things that I had done. Because the people that I worked with, on my level, and the officers, there was 2 officers that were there at my retirement ceremony. My commander and the guy that was doing all of the verbiage for the veteran and his retirement and everything. And then I looked out there and there was a standing room only crowd of these youngsters, men and women that had worked with and for me for 24 years, out there to say, way to go, Sarge, good job. And all of them were young. And that to me said that I had done something right for more than just me.
Did something right for America, for all of America.
I tried real hard to make sure that happened too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And because I did what I did, at my retirement ceremony, I had a large number of these young ones that had worked for and with me and figured out the way I worked. All of a sudden, I'd go into their offices and guess what they were doing? They were doing the same thing that I had. And that told me that, okay, I guess doing what I did was the right thing to do, the right way to do it, and I'm proud of those guys and glad that they were here to see me off. Is there any other questions?
One more.
Okay.
Something, one more.
We have,
Pick up a good one.
I got 2 questions left.
Okay, you got them.
I guess you kind of
I'll
knocked that.
take rank on.
Kind of knocked out that last one a little bit. That one a little bit. Do you have kind of a short-ish story from the military? I think a good one would be the Philippines one.
Oh, yeah.
That one's my personal favorite.
That's the one about the lady that worked with me?
Yes, and the way that Grandma learned
Oh.
lumpia.
Oh, yeah.
That one's a good one.
When we were living in the Philippine Islands, we were living in an apartment, but we had a house girl. And she was really something because she was a cook like you would not believe. And my wife was brand new to the military. She was a really good cook, but she knew a whole lot too. And that young lady that worked as our house girl and took care of our kids and our house and all of our stuff like that really knew how to do lumpia and fried rice from the Philippines. I love that.
If you don't know what lumpia is, it is it's an amazing egg roll that is from the Philippines, and it is amazing. My grandma makes the best.
And there's nobody that knows how to make fried rice better than her, because she got it from Rose, who was our house dog. And so she was really good. And then when my son was born, she used to just love him. She used to call him her Pogey boy. That meant he was really up there in status with her, even though he was just a little snot. But yeah, and then my wife learned how to cook a lot of the stuff from Rose, and we still eat it at home. And I'm here to tell you, if they don't have enough, that's too bad, because I'm taking what I want first.
Yep, that's how our family is with the Philippine dishes. It's if we didn't cook enough, we'll try to make it flexible, but I'm eating as many as I want to eat. That's how our family is with it. So, but thank you, Grandpa.
You betcha.
I really enjoyed it.
And I enjoyed letting you do me this. I'm not the first time I've been here. I've been here when one of the teachers asked me to come and talk to her, and I did, and she had a good group, and we had a talk, and the kids were asking all kinds of questions. None of them were, oh man.
This is so boring.
Because I could always, back then I had a little bit of a more sense of humor, or letting people know that there is a time when you can smile. And I ended up being her choice of the veterans on Veterans Day for about 6 years in a row. And I had her phone number and she had mine, and she was all the time asking me, okay, can you come and do this? Can you come and do that? I loved doing it because I loved the kids. That was what was fun, was doing it for the kids.
Thank you for coming. This was really nice. Most of this stuff, I knew a couple things here and there, but most of this stuff I didn't even know, and I'm his grandson. So, but thank you for coming. This was really fun, really nice, and very informative.